104.5, the team, your home for New York sports and the Major League Baseball playoffs. Very cool time for us because our buddy, a Guiltland native and studio host for the NLCS, Marc Kestecher, with us. Kesty, first things first, just your overall thoughts on Cubs versus Dodgers so far.
Yeah, I think, like a lot of America, probably a little bit surprised. We all figured, the Cubs were just on all cylinders, even though they didn't really hit very well in the Giants series. They came up with the clutch hits late in the game to end it and, really take away any drama from a potential Game 5 that would have been played at Wrigley Field. So you figured, all right, maybe they're over the hump. But then, the Dodgers come out and, nearly come back against their bullpen in Game 1. We know what they've done the rest of the series. And, yeah, I think a little bit surprised at, the Cubs' lack of hitting, I guess, would be the biggest concern for them so far in the series.
We all knew about Clayton Kershaw's struggles in the postseason. He's starting to improve that now. Has that narrative changed now in his career about his postseason lack of success?
I think so. I think, look, hey, I'm as guilty as everybody else, but when you go back and look at the game logs, you can argue, sure, small sample size. Sometimes the bullpen didn't come, in his behalf when he would leave with runners on in the seventh inning in crucial games, and all those guys on base end up on his ledger as earned runs. But if you take a little deeper look, specifically to that St. Louis series a couple years ago, he gave up that 3-run home run to Matt Adams. That's all on him. He had a 4-inning outing that, sure, the bullpen didn't pick him up, but, 7 runs end up being on his ledger. He didn't have a great game in that series as well. But when you look around that one particular series, he hasn't been terrible. And, yes, between coming out of the bullpen in the clinching Game 5 against Washington and what he did on Sunday night at Wrigley Field, I think he definitely has turned that whole thing around.
It's weird, though, because we get pushback on that, Kesty. Marc Kestecher joining us right now on 104.5, the team. Goz and I had that conversation. We're like, all right, so he did everything he needed to do for the NLDS. Then he comes out and he shuts down the Cubbies in the NLCS. And we're like, okay, we're going to hear you now. Now we take away the best regular season pitcher. And a bunch of our local fans are all like, one game, guys. Like, are we being too soon? Can it easily turn back? Or is it like you leave him alone until he screws up?
Well, it can. I mean, look, if he has a bad outing next time out, everyone's like, see, there's the LCS numbers that we've seen from years past. But I don't have the numbers in front of me at the moment. But if you take a look at the outings he had, obviously he was young and coming out of the bullpen in 2009. But even, before that St. Louis series and after, they're not horrible numbers. They're not great. They're not the numbers he puts up in his regular year, which is, 3 times ERA champ. Could have been a 4th if he qualified for innings this year. But they're not as awful when you take a look at them on the whole. But, yeah, one bad outing, and that whole narrative swings right back to where it was.
Kesty's doing the studio work for the NLCS. Kesty, I know Mets don't want to hear this, but how much fun is Justin Turner right now?
It's fun to be him, I know that, because that cash register's ringing every time he does something well. I'm just, amazed at he's just one of those guys. Great eye, great at-bats, really makes the pitcher work, forces a pitcher to, maybe groove a mistake, which you may only get once, maybe twice in that bat. He might see it a third time, and he does something with it the third time. He's just one of those guys you wish was on your team, and yes, if you're a Mets fan, you're wondering why he still isn't.
Early on in this series, the Cubs offense has been struggling. Do you believe in this curse? Are these guys just getting nervous at the plate because the weight of 108 years is on their shoulders?
Well, I'm not a big curse guy, but there's got to be something to knowing the history. And believe me, nobody knows it more than, when it deals with the Chicago Cubs. I got to imagine on some level you think like, uh-oh, here we go again. But from everyone you talk to, that clubhouse, and I think it comes right from the top from Joe Madden. He, has a very clear vision of what he wants. He always seems to know what to say or do to make you relax, to get the best out of you, to not point the finger, and everyone starts blaming everybody else. But I think, look, the good news is being in Los Angeles and a few thousand miles away from Chicago, that's got to help a little bit, because I got to imagine, folks a little tense there We all remember the Seattle Mariners about 15 years ago that had the 116-win season. This isn't, a record-breaking season to that extent, but you think if there's a year they're going to do it, this might be the year, especially after the quote-unquote, learning of getting swept out of the LCS last year, and now you're singularly focused to get right back to that position, and after what you've done in the regular season, you want to finish it off. So I would think it's just human nature to start thinking about it, but they got a great commander in Joe Madden to try to ease them through this if they can get through it.
The gilded voice of Guilderland, Marc Kestecher. He's the studio analyst and announcer, the host for the NLCS. I just thought of that.
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay.
You know what? I might have to look into some kind of trademark on that one. I don't know if I agree with it, but it sounded good. Illiterate, I know that. Not illiterate, but alliterate.
I give you a nice name, you call me names. Kesty, you're in Bristol. You're running the studio, so we'll hear you during the NLCS games right here on 104.5 The Team. What is your day like for these games for the NLCS?
You know what? For baseball studio, it's you're in it every day. There's really only a couple things you have to update. For me, it's knowing who we're going to interview in that hour-long pregame and making sure I don't ask the same questions to 3 or 4 different people and just really thinking it out. But I love to multitask this time of year. So if it's preparing for next week's NBA opener in Cleveland, I'll do a little of that. I know I got some college football down the line, some college basketball. So it's you get paid to just kind of look at rosters and watch tape and do some research. You can't beat that.
It's a great job.
You get paid?
Yeah, it's a great job if you can find it. If you can find someone to pay you, that's a good thing.
Kesty, we don't get paid.
See, I remember those days, and I got paid in movie tickets at one stop in Albany, and at the time, that was a great job. They're paying me in movie tickets. This is awesome.
I don't hate that. I hope my boss doesn't hear that. That might be my raise.
Kesty, it could be. We're giving you a bonus this year. You get to go to the Cinema 12 three times.
But only in the matinees.
That's right.
That's right. Stay out of the first run showings.
Kesty, we appreciate you. Have a great call.
All right. Great being on with you guys.